Welcome back. A bill that would utilize GPS technology to alert domestic violence victims when an offender is nearby is coming back this legislative session. Representative Robert Spenlove is the sponsor. He's here to discuss the bill and changes from last year. Representative Spenlove, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's define the bill. What would it do?
So the main part of this bill is it would enhance the ability of courts to impose GPS tracking on either when someone is convicted of a domestic violence or when in pretrial when a protective order is being sought.
Pretrial, that's an important part to this bill. Explain why.
It's an essential part because where these victims are being hurt or killed is generally not after conviction. It's after that first offense, after the perpetrator has been arrested and they're looking for this protection. And this would strengthen the ability of courts to impose that GPS tracking as part of those protective orders.
And in some cases could potentially, the financial burden could fall on the offender as well.
Exactly. If the perpetrator is financially able, they will be required to pay the cost of the GPS tracking.
Okay, so let's talk about outcome. The goal here is to ultimately do what?
I mean, the ultimate goal is to protect victims of domestic violence. I mean, you look at what happened with Lauren McCluskey, what happened with Mem Rackley and her son Jace. I mean, these were women that felt like they didn't have any options, that felt like the police weren't there for them, that felt like law enforcement wasn't able or willing to give them the tools they needed to protect themselves. With this technology, not only is it a GPS tracker, but the victim can have an app on their phone that will notify them when someone has come too close. So it notifies them, says you need to get away, get to a safe place, and then it notifies the police saying you need to respond to the situation.
Okay, so it would notify both parties in that situation, the
Yes.
police as well. Good to clarify that. Obstacles last year. As I mentioned, this is returning from last year, so it didn't get through last year. What are you doing different this year to hopefully get it through the legislature this time?
So last year's bill, we did two things. We did the GPS tracking. We also enhanced the penalties for conviction of domestic violence abuse. The problem we were running into is we were getting pushed back by some of the courts. We were getting pushed back by some of the police forces and some of the prosecutors. They weren't happy with the cost of it and that it would be moving it from municipal to district courts. I still want to do that. But understanding the difficulty of getting both of those done at once, I've split the bill into two. One of the bills is pushing the GPS tracking, and then the other one is pushing the enhanced penalties. So
the enhanced penalties is really what held up the bill last year?
No, last year, yeah, the enhanced penalties really held it up. But I want to make sure that, you know, I'm still going to be pushing both of them, but I want to make sure that we're keeping these discussions distinct.
Got it. So do you see, are you going to put more priority on one or the other?
Yeah, so I'm going to be pushing the GPS tracking first. That's something we've just about got that drafted, and then pushing the enhanced penalties as well. But if it takes a little bit longer to get that done, we can keep working on it over the interim too.
Give us an idea on how this technology is being used now and how you see it being used if your bill were to go through and pass.
So that's one of the things I've been a little frustrated by. We've been doing a lot of research over the last little while to see how much this GPS technology is being used. In 2018, 860 people were convicted of domestic violence. 43 times the courts imposed GPS tracking.
That's not a lot.
That's less than 5% of the time it's actually being used. And I can't find any examples of it being used in pre-trial protective orders. So I think there's two parts of this. Number one is enhancing the court's ability to use this technology. And then the next part is we've got to be leaning on the courts, getting them to be using this technology and protecting these victims.
This kind of hit close to home for you. You already mentioned one of the cases, but that's really what launched you into this venture.
Yeah. Mem Rackley and her son Jace were literally killed right outside my daughter's school. My daughter was walking home when it happened. The perpetrator, the murderer, literally parked in the parking lot next to the school where my daughter goes to school. And you know, it really hit home to me and showed me this can really happen anywhere. No one is safe from domestic violence. No community is safe from it. And we've all got to be taking this seriously. We've all got to be doing everything we can to address it.
It does happen anywhere, and unfortunately we see it ends in death all too often.
Yeah.
We'll be tracking your bill. We'll see how it goes this legislative session. Appreciate your time and letting us know how it will work.
Great. Thanks so much.
You bet. Coming up after the break, competing bills will collide this year over changing the gender on a birth certificate. Our panel will weigh in coming up.